podcast listeners. Welcome to Fearless with Sharpe. I am Sharpe, aka Bake Sharpie on Twitch, and today we are filming episode 4 of Fearless. Assess to de-stress, get the most out of quarantine with Justin Olivar. So, Justin Olivar is a very close friend of mine, and he's here today, and I feel like he's going to be able to bring a lot of value today in this conversation. So, Justin, would you be able to tell the chat a little bit about yourself, just so that they know who you are and get to know you a little bit?
Okay. Well, hello. Following. Little about myself is I'm actually this is interesting. I was not even ready to describe me as a person, but I guess the best way is what I'm doing right now. Right now I'm still in school pursuing business marketing. I think that one of the craziest things that was of recent is this whole pandemic, and I feel like that in itself has really hindered what I assume my progress is going to be in the future. But that is where I turned internally to my thoughts and kind of figuring out, reading books, do what I can now in order to see this as nothing more than just any other ordinary day. And I think that's for me one of the best things that we could probably do in the meantime while this stuff is happening. It's almost like everything kind of came to a standstill. So yeah, a little about myself. I feel like that right now is irrelevant. I think what matters more is who am I in my mind? What is the person I am willing to display? And I think that for right now, here in this present moment, I feel like right now the person I am is somebody who can utilize these platforms to kind of share what we can do, amidst all of this, really.
Yeah, that's true. I think one of the main things that we wanted to talk about in this podcast is making sure that we can get the most out of being in quarantine. And one thing for sure is that coronavirus is affecting a lot of people right now. And I feel like I would say around 2 or 3 weeks ago, a lot of us thought that, this is something that might just blow over. But as things are getting more intense, at least here in Cali and the US and in the world in general, the things that the coronavirus is affecting is definitely not going to go away anytime soon. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that, just to shed some light, because I know that at least for me, being in quarantine and being in a recommended lockdown has changed just a lot of my normal life. And I'm sure for everyone else, the quarantine is definitely affecting them. So do you think you could talk a little bit about how the quarantine's been for you?
Yeah,
over the past 2 weeks or so?
It's funny because I actually have a follow-up question to that. Actually, no, I want to ask that question first.
Okay.
So, like many others, I feel like the idea of a pandemic seemed very distant, especially with news coming about China all of a sudden, or Wuhan specifically, going under this isolation. I do recall one video specifically where it was a person kind of sharing just how bad of a lockdown it was, streets empty and all
in
that,
Wuhan,
and it just seems so far away. And I think in the moment I was like, okay, shit, it's happening in the world, that's cool. And you don't really give it thought until it starts affecting your life, right? Now, my question for you first is what were you doing before even any of news,
all this stuff
all
happened?
Of a sudden it started affecting your life? What was your mindset like? What was
I see.
What was your day to day basically, and how has it
for me at least, I feel like before everything started, and when we just first started hearing about coronavirus and stuff like that, I definitely had plans for what I wanted to do, especially with my career and stuff. And so at the time, I was really focused on trying to, find a job, find a position, get interviews, and really push myself in like that field, and like just kind of explore my options. And so my mindset back then was like, all right, I have a timeline for what I want to do. And then like afterwards, the difference, it kind of changed, because it's like, because of the coronavirus, I feel like I had to change my plan and like my timeline, just because it's like, it's affecting, not only affecting me, but affecting like the employers that I am in contact with. Like, for example, I would say, I think around three of my interviews that I had were postponed to no later date. And so me thinking that, okay, I have these interviews like lined up, now I don't have them anymore, now what am I gonna do? Like, it's kind of like scary, and that's like where that fear kind of set in for me, at least, because that was my main focus. Right. Now I feel like instead of going outward and trying to figure things out on the outside with like my job and my career, I've been focusing more on my inside and just like developing personally and knowing what I want to do, so that whether this whole COVID thing gets solved or not, like I'll know what I want to do, at least. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about it right now.
Yeah, I wanted to ask because it's almost like in the face of adversity, all of a sudden, like, things come into perspective, timelines change, especially our plans. And that's why I feel like all of a sudden this topic, which we've shunned so like back in our minds, is suddenly like, okay, there's people that are figuring it out, and then there's people that are still willing to move. And I think it's a matter of understanding when like, how do I move, when's a good time, is it even possible?
Yeah.
And I mean, clearly we're still living in the same exact world that we were in 3 weeks ago.
True.
Really, it's kind of like, okay, now we have to do it a little differently. Not to say that it's impossible.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the premise of what this whole thing really is going to be about.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because I feel like it's, at least for me, it was really hard to
Hold on, I'm gonna put
kind of be okay with change. I'm gonna put it up.
Yeet.
For sure.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. But like, I think just being able to accept everything that's happened was really hard at first, but as things get a little bit more normal, it becomes a little bit easier to accept and start devising like a way to be the most successful in times like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, for someone that feels like they're stuck, or feels like they're greatly affected by the quarantine, like let's say this someone is furloughed from their job, or they feel like they're stuck because they can't go outside. And there's like I see a lot of stories and stuff about people our age saying like, fuck the coronavirus, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. And like, I feel like that is a very one-sided way to think about it.
Oh yeah.
And so like, for someone that is in that position, well, what would you say to them, or what kind of advice would you give them if that's kind of how they're thinking?
Well, one, like, when I think about people that kind of disregard this whole entire stay at home, kind of like be like, you know what, like, this doesn't, like, who gives a fuck, essentially.
Yeah.
If this is happening, I'm still going to live my life how I wanted to and whatnot. I feel like the type of people that kind of carry on that like thought process
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that when being controlled, they don't feel like, in order to feel like they're not being or not under control of somebody else, they are
Mm-hmm.
willing to control everything around them, whether that be like, oh, for my family, yeah, I'm like, I work at a restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And freaking, oh, what's up, Alvin? Anyways, I work at a restaurant, and freaking in my 12 to 4 shift, somebody in the girls' restroom literally like got the toilet paper and wrapped it around and
Oh
around
my
and
God.
around and then brought it home.
Oh my God. What the heck?
And like my thought is kind of like, well, that's extreme. And yes, we're on a tight budget, but also like, where's the morality in
Yeah.
that? And like for me, I think that us as Americans, as citizens, as people that either have someone that's affected, know someone, don't know anybody, the thing is that we all live in the same exact place.
Mm-hmm.
So now more than ever, I feel like people need to come together, have an understanding, and if you don't want other people to get in your way, then also like don't get in their way.
Yeah.
And avoid getting in other people's way. We're good.
Yeah.
But also shout out to all the people that are like doing these food funds and donating and just giving supplies, because like that in itself is what we need as a community.
Yeah, definitely.
But for those that aren't looking to do the external for others, I think that it's important that we have an understanding of what's internal.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my advice pretty much for all the people that are going to watch this video or are tuned in. A lot of the lessons that I get come from the philosophy of stoicism. And specifically because I found it very easy. If I take from this guy named Ryan Holiday, read a few of his books already, and I feel like he does a really great job in helping the reader kind of understand what's important, especially in times of distress. So yeah, just a little, just going into stoicism a little bit. I think that I found this quote online, and I think it's like the best example that I could that just shouts stoicism at me. It's one, it's objective judgment, unselfish action, and willing acceptance now, at this very moment, of all external events.
I see.
So I think the 3 lessons to really take is judgment, action, will.
Okay.
And then lastly, separating those 3 from the external.
I see. In the book, the way he talks about like the ideals in it, it's like for use in any type of environment, right? Or is it mainly about like our time right now?
Honestly, it's for any type of environment. And I feel like even when this book was written, and mind you, stoicism existed for many many years, which goes to show that as time passes, it's still applicable today. So like I imagine the book was written for any kind of person looking to further their ability. But I think that with everybody experiencing the same type of obstacle, it's made it even more relatable.
I see. Like in modern times?
Yeah.
Okay, for sure. And then what was the name of the book again?
The book is The Obstacle is the Way, specifically.
Okay.
That's the key book, but then you can always look into others as well that he produces. His name is Ryan Holiday.
For sure. Okay. So just in case anyone wants to know what book we're talking about, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, check it out. There's also, other books that have similar ideals, but the one that we're talking about is that one. So with just like making the most out of quarantine, what do you think are some ways or some ideals that you took from the book that that helped you or is helping you right now, like during this time?
Yeah, I think the entire philosophy itself of stoicism, and I think an easy start to it, I kind of break it into tiers. So like we said, judgment, which is another word, is like perception. um Level 2 would be what actions you kind of take. And the third is, do you have the will to carry out these actions?
Okay.
And mind you that these teachings are something for you internally. It's not something for you to use to change your, like, it's not used for you to change everything around you.
Okay.
But by changing inside your mind,
Your
your thought
outlook,
process,
your perspective and stuff.
you are able to carry out like changing the world in another type of way.
Okay.
And I think the best way to start is perception. So this one's kind of a lengthy topic, I would say, because the mind, I feel like we kind of go about our day to day without really looking inside, and like we feel the things that we feel, but we don't understand why these feelings come about.
I see.
And I think that in itself already is like the first roadblock.
Just like awareness.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you've definitely done some podcasts with emotional awareness, at least. So just want to dive into it, actually.
Yeah.
So perspective. I think one thing that's really helped me in going about this is taming the mind. And objective, that is what you are able to see in what's happening without any like self put into it.
Okay.
So objectivity, a good example is, this is happening and it's bad. Now that's a statement that comes out a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like,
especially now.
Yeah, like you can go to the grocery store. Oh man, the grocery store is filled. There's no stocks of anything.
Yeah.
This is bad, right? Now the objective part of it is this is happening. You know, going to a grocery store, you see like a lot of supplies are out of stock. That's happening. Now, for you to acknowledge, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you have created a negative idea of what's actually happening around you.
It's like your own input and your own ideals in it now.
Right.
Okay.
And when you start putting that like ideal into play, you're going to notice that in itself, that obstacle created by the fact that you said this is bad, is going to come home. You're going to tell everyone all about it. And then suddenly this news of like, this is bad, is going to affect. You're going to start thinking of ways where you can avoid it completely. Or if anything, wake up at 5 a.m. the next day, get in line, get stock, right? Now, that not necessarily might be true for like what's your daily life. For example, you might have a pack of 24 paper towel rolls at home. And because you notice that there's no paper towel rolls there, all of a sudden, and you've announced that it's bad, you feel the need to grab more paper towel rolls. Hoarding is not going to help. I repeat, hoarding is not going to help.
Definitely not.
But that objectivity is important because I think one thing to separate is your mind and your emotion. Emotion is what makes us feel human, right? But at the same time, like I guess like any type of weapon, it's only going to be useful if it's utilized right.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
If you have a gun and you want to break something,
Yeah.
you're not going to smash the gun repeatedly until it's broken. You're probably going to shoot it.
Yeah.
So like emotion, it's there, it makes us human, but we have to use it correctly. Meaning eliminating all bad types of emotion, keeping objectivity so that you can utilize the right type of emotion towards what you need to do.
Okay, that makes sense. I feel like that's super relevant right now, just because we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and if we let the emotions get to the best of us, then we're going to be doing things that kind of make no sense, which is kind of like what's going on right now. Especially, I mean, like, one, with the toilet paper situation, and like two, just with people kind of being selfish and like going out when everyone needs to be doing their part, especially because I feel like it's still, there's a lot of people that still don't understand like the level of intensity that this virus is doing for everyone. And so you feel like that being objective in today's time has like really helped you be more control of your emotions, at least?
Yeah, I would say so. And the thing is, like, that's only one part of the equation, really. Once you're able to separate your objective eye when it comes to looking at things, and distinguishing what's perceiving, which is pretty much like trying to look for more into it, when really like all that matters is that initial,
that's what it is,
right? Like what's happening. And I feel like as that is one key aspect to understanding within your mind what needs, or what is actually true, because I think a lot of the things that stop us from really being able to move forward is not being able to distinguish what is real and what is perceived. Because with perceived, you only have part of the realness, and then after that you start adding a bunch of other junk into it. Right? So other than that, really, I think a key lesson is to learn how to study our nerves when it comes to reacting. Because I'm not gonna lie, when we get bad information or preconceived bad information, our nerves start to tingle. We get anxious and all that. So a good lesson with using or studying your nerves would be to it's pretty much like taking yourself out
of the situation,
out of the equation completely. Your nerves happen because all of a sudden your world, which is fair enough, you're your own body or your own mind, your own soul, is suddenly being affected, right? And because it has this security, like this something's wrong,
something's trying, it's your like fight or flight,
right? Because that all of a sudden that's going off, your nerves are shaking, and to study it is to really understand, like, by putting yourself into the equation, you're suddenly disturbing those nerves.
I see, because it's like survival,
right? But the simple thought of like, okay, I am not going to let this affect me. It is what it is. Nothing more. Suddenly you're going to find your nerves calming down. And in that sense, you're able to think with a clear mind.
I see.
And I think a good way of putting it, or a good example at least, is that when you get into any sort of fight, I guess, or any sort of altercation, and you feel the need that they need to apologize, the the fact
Definitely
that,
felt that before.
right? Like, oh man, he's being such a dick.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, dude, sorry. I think that feeling of requiring an apology,
Mm-hmm.
internally in your mind, that's already stating that you have affected me as an individual. You have stole something from me, and I feel that you owe me
I see.
an apology.
Like blaming them for your feeling, kind of.
Right, yeah. And at the end of the day, like, come in altercation, you get hit by a shopping cart at the said grocery. Like, you'll be fuming for the next few seconds, days, weeks, even.
True.
But that's because you've already let them take something from you, which is your time. You've already let them take your energy and all that, simply because you felt like in that moment the world revolves around you. So really, containing your nerves is trying to separate that.
Separating you from the equation. That makes sense.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You gotta let it happen. Except, I think something to go off of that is, it's like just, or a way to surrender your nerves, just like what you're saying, is to, or just kind of saying it in a different way, is like just surrendering the outcome, because a lot of us are like so caught up in the result, and if you surrender the outcome, then you also, you surrender those crazy nerves and that fight or flight system that can make you do a lot of emotional things. But just like I guess a question about like setting your nerves. Like, for example, some of my friends, or I guess, like, for example, Kat, like her mom is like super crazy about the coronavirus thing, and she's always like telling her that like she needs to stay inside, she needs to buy food, she needs to buy toilet paper, just everything. So like, how would you say, or what would you say is the best way to like deal with other people kind of like pushing like their fears and their whatever is scaring them onto you? Because then I feel like when people are like, maybe like right now I feel like I'm not afraid, or I feel like I'm in control of my emotions, but then when other people are like telling me, oh, you need to do this right now, because like if you don't, you're gonna die or something, like that's when I start feeling scared. So
okay,
what would you say is like the best way to deal with that type of situation?
Firstly, considering the fact that it's her mom, or let's just take use that example, but give it without any like personal
like names or stuff,
whatever. Let's say you like you have an understanding of separating yourself from these instances, and you have people that have an influence on your life, telling you all these things where you've clearly already separated that that mind and emotion. So one thing that really, like, I guess the easiest way to put it is that, who is living your life?
Yeah.
Is your mom living your life for you? Or are you the one
like in control?
And I think already like that means that anything that you want to control should be internal. And if anybody is giving you commands, especially people of like
close friends or anything,
then almost take it like it's their opinion, because by submitting to other people's ideals, think of it like you're living your life, somebody tells you something, and they're living their life. All of a sudden, you're going to buy into their thought, and now you're living their life.
I see.
Until you choose to break away from that and continue living your life.
That's interesting.
So
good thought.
It's like pay your respects when like you feel that they're necessary, because
Yeah.
obviously if it's someone like your mom,
Yeah, you can't get
always
rid of
love.
them.
But also consider that if you understand what's important to you and whatnot, and what actually is there,
Mm-hmm.
then really their statement is an opinion.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
An opinion that like that you can take and like you decide to
Do what you want
understand.
with
Yeah,
it.
do what you want with it. That's it sounds good. That's definitely like one way that to deal with that, because I feel like there's a lot of people that have to deal with that like right now, just with like friends and even like news and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's so many negative things that are being put out in the news, and that's not just because because they're happening, but it's also that's what like humans are attracted to. Like for example, like if you're like walking down the road and you see a TV that has a news on and it says, oh, it's bright and sunny today in California, like you're gonna be like, okay, yeah. But then if you saw on the TV that, oh my god, it's like raining, storm is coming, you're gonna be like, oh my god, what's going on, you know? It's kind of like just like human nature for us to notice the negative things. And like what you said before, I think it's super important that we have someone standing there in front of our like thoughts, making sure that they filter like what gets to go in. Because if you let everything that's going on, especially like with like the COVID stuff, like you can get eaten up and fall into like a deep hole of, oh my god, I'm never gonna be able to do what I want to do because of like because of the situation. So
Right.
yeah, I feel like I don't know, it's just something crazy to think about. But
I think a good, or like, as in pursuit of marketing itself and all of its factors, and this is no like new news to anybody,
yeah.
but obviously news channels look for ratings
Mm.
because it's their job.
Yeah.
But with all the negativity, it's just so easier to get people into fight or flight
I see.
than it is to
Like
give
with
them
positive
like,
stuff.
oh yeah, it's almost like that should happen. That should happen, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think a good way of separating is, even if you see negative news and it's always there, like a good way to practice controlling your mind is, one, looking at all these negative like aspects that are happening around the world, and literally just taking it as information.
I see.
Yeah.
And that's it. Just like
just keep practicing that, and just over time you'll understand like what matters once you have this information, right? And I think guess last keynotes that I could do in regards to fortifying your mindset is one, once you understand what's negative or what's positive in these messages, and just taking all that aside and just taking it as information, you're already one step ahead from somebody who's letting their those negative I guess information that's affecting them. You're already one step ahead, right?
I see. Yeah.
Because the more like you said, when you get let negative negative information start affecting you, even if it doesn't actually affect you,
Yeah.
then you're not doing something
Yeah.
that could better your life
That's true.
in that moment. Whereas somebody who's seeing it as information is like, okay, I understand, continues doing something else.
I see.
And then ultimately is understanding like what can be controlled, because with negative or with information in general, it's always good to have information, but I think the last bit that you can grab in making sure that your mind is in the right place, staying in the present moment, is staying in the present moment.
Yeah.
You know,
doing what you can to
yeah, because people in the financial districts, anybody that's into stocks,
Yeah.
knows that it's always in your best interest to try and predict what the next thing will be. But in
Yeah.
always predicting, you're also setting up a risk, right?
Yeah.
And that's like common. But for people that aren't necessarily into that and are just focused on whatever career that they have, then planning isn't going to help you. it's good to have goals ahead,
I see.
but you're not going to get to that goal if you're only focusing on the information that matters at this moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the information right now that I need to refer to is my little notes.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to talk
Be
to
present,
you,
yeah.
but also understand that this stream exists, but I'm blocking that because it's
like
affecting
juggling. Mm-hmm.
like our talk.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah. So then, like, if I'm someone that is like, there's just so many things going on, like the best thing to do is just to like focus on what I can change and what I can do to make things better.
Mm-hmm. And that's strictly like in your present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that it's in your present moment.
Mm-hmm. Like not focusing on stuff that's happened or even stuff that in the future.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Past, irrelevant.
Okay.
Past is irrelevant in all aspects. You can utilize it to develop thoughts and predict, but it's only a reference tool, right?
Yeah.
Future, it's good to look into the future outcome, but another part of the thing that comes with planning for the future is the risk that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
So the more you think about the future, the more you're not doing anything in the present, and that in itself is already affecting your future.
Okay. So more on the lines of like, if I'm kind of scared of what's going to happen in the future, then I'm going to be like affected by it, rather than just like doing what I can, focusing on what like can be controlled, and then like just allowing that to happen. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, and so let's say that I feel like my mindset is good, and I'm trying to figure out like what to do. What would you say is like the best, or I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I feel like I'm calm and I want to, start doing, but I'm like scared because like I don't know like the best way to go about like pushing forward. And I guess like there's like a lot of examples of like this, which is like I think stating example would be an easier way to explain what I'm trying to ask. So let's say, like for example, I'm calm. I'm understanding that like the coronavirus is real. I'm stuck in quarantine. Now what is the kind of the question that I'm like trying to answer? Like, what doesn't matter like what my goal is, whether that's like, oh, I want to like find a job, or I'm trying to meet someone new. Like I'm single, I'm trying to meet someone new, or like anything. Like what's the best way to go about actually doing something? Because I feel like we talked mostly about like the perception and like objectivity, and then now I'm trying to like move forward into actually doing.
Right. And that in itself is the next level to stoicism itself. It's like once you have this understanding of things, it's good to understand things, but what's the point if like you're still not where you want to be?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think bottom line, like answers will come to you, but answers don't come from nothingness, right?
Yeah.
Answers come from doing something. So action. Action is the next step, and it doesn't have to be like anything profound or big moves, but it's the idea of action. Because like the reason why we need to take action in anything that we do is because, like many philosophers, you can always think all day.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing anything about it, then it remains
just remains that. Yeah.
Now, to change situations, you act upon it. But I think like stated in your example, you're using like in this situation, in like being in a pandemic, being in lockdown, like that confinement already
is there.
Like okay, like I can't take action then.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
You know, just as when you grab hold of what you need, like your mind, your mindset, then everything after that, once you've developed that, action comes easy. I'll tell you now, action comes easy. Perception, it precedes action, like and the right action follows the right perception.
I see.
Okay,
that makes sense.
With that in mind, any kind of action that you take is good. Whether in like in a on the scale of things, there will always be right, like better answers.
Yeah.
But just because this wasn't the best answer now, doesn't mean that it's going to build and build and build and build. And all of a sudden, that amount of action outweighs this one immensely. It gave you a different path. Right? Yeah. So I think like a good way of finding out which action works in scenarios.
I see.
I have thought up my own little like example display thingy on the whiteboard. Okay.
Camera's that way.
Okay.
Can we see this okay? Hopefully we can.
Oh, maybe. Okay, there. Let me lower it like that. Perfect. Okay, can you open this marker?
Yes, sir. Take action, y'all. Okay, why is this marker like super tight? Here you go.
Go. Okay, so we're going to be under the assumption that you have a clear thought process, that you've overcome the perspective aspect, and all that's left is action.
I see.
Right?
Like your perception of everything is as objective as possible.
Yep.
And you're like ready to do something. Okay.
Okay. So here I have 2 points. There's A and B. A is where you are right now. B is where you want to be. Okay. Okay. So this is everything that you know, because you are in the present moment. You know you're on A, and you know you want to be on B. This whole thing right here, that's the unknown. That is the place where you don't even know it exists. Right? Yeah. But it's there. It's still in this board. Okay. Cool. Paper 10.
For sure.
Okay, so I think the one A to B. That's your path. That in itself, that's like the first thing that we're going to do, right? And as easy as it is, it's always not that easy. Okay. I'm going to use the example of the pandemic, right? Being in lockdown. So I want to draw a wall. Okay. Now, what is your plan of action?
Well, let's see. So, I mean, now that I see the wall, and I'm guessing like the wall would be like the pandemic, the like.
And mind you, the line was straight, right?
Yeah. And so, if this is me, and I'm like, okay, if this is me, and I'm like, okay, the pandemic's happened, then I guess for me, my next thought would be to go like this, and try to get to my
like
my goal, right? Yeah.
And that right there, this type of action, that is looking for alternative ways. So because of the reality, because there's something blocking you, you chose to, one, take the longer way, and then get to your point. Now that's like I feel like anybody that's really looked at this obstacle and been like, okay, well, yeah, just go fucking around it. But a lot of the times like for example, I've definitely felt this as soon as I heard news about the pandemic. Like, shoot, this is going to put my plan like
Yeah.
on hold and even further, right? And the thing is, it's so easy for us to draw a line because it takes like a second longer, right? But in perspective, like, what if this was a whole year worth?
It could be like a year longer, 2 years, even like of a 1 year span planned goal.
And how comfortable are people to really do that?
Super uncomfortable, I would say.
What if they spend another year deciding, you know what, like, that's not the route. And then later on, you know what, I have to do this.
Yeah. And
so they end up drawing the same line that took them 3 years when it could have taken them 2 years, right? And as easy as this looks, I feel like it's not really easy to exemplify when faced with it, right? I'll show you another type of action that you can do. So I think with obstacles like this, another way of going about it, instead of looking at like for other ways, let's say that you still want to get to your destination very much the same way you're looking for time, the opportunity to, right? With that, what we call taking action with energy. Okay, so we're gonna do this one again. This is point A, point B. Now, with energy, a good example would be water.
Water?
Yeah. So when water, like, you understand the movement of water is like energy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, water, what they can do is when they're flowing towards their destination, if there's something in the way, they'll just flow around it, right?
Yeah.
Now, what if it's being blockaded completely? So like a dam.
Like a dam, yeah.
Right?
I was just thinking that.
So with a dam, here's you. The virus or the obstacle right now is COVID, right? And it's a dam. It's put everything on hold. So you have all this energy. And what happens when the dam breaks loose? Literally. So much pent up energy can eventually break something that can't hold it back.
Okay.
Right? And how is this applicable to me?
Like in just like relevance.
Right, yeah, because I'm not water.
Yeah.
It's not a dam. So I think the best way of explaining like how do you create this type of energy is you still have your goal in mind. You know that it's only a temporary obstacle. It's going to loosen up its grip on you. What are you doing to, like, right now in this present moment before it lets its grip a little loose and you break through?
I see.
And that's something that I've been doing. It's taking information, building my mindset, gaining as much knowledge as I can. Like, I'm working 10 times as hard as I am on a regular day without a virus. Just because once those bans get, or once the lockdown gets lifted,
you'll know like exactly what to do.
I'm gonna shoot for the goal before anybody else can. Right? And you don't necessarily know the answer, but because there's an obstacle, you are able to build up all this pent up energy. Yeah. And whereas other people are looking for ways to cope with their mind, I'm taking action by fortifying my mind instead of distracting my mind. Enough to break this and shoot out
once it's like starts to crack.
Like, let's say this is another person right behind me, like days later. And like,
I see.
Although like it's not really a competition between you and other people, you just have the advantage of getting to your goal as fast as you can because you waited a few minutes. Right?
I see. You planned it out and pushed for your goal. So it's like, I guess if those two examples were two people, then like the first person during quarantine, they were like planning out what they wanted to do. They were focusing on their mindset, getting ready to like push once things like loosened up a bit. And then person two was focused on what they couldn't control, and like that held them back and made it so that they didn't put as much energy into it, because they're like, why should I? Because this whole thing, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a great example of like what's happening right now. I feel like just with people in the herd mindset.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 2 more lessons with this A, B, and example. Okay. So we're gonna draw our obstacle again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's even bigger.
Yeah. Huge obstacle.
Okay, let's say now you can't go around.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can't go around.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how does one?
So I can't go around. I guess I would definitely keep trying.
Keep trying? Yeah, that's good.
Probably. Until I find a way to get through.
Okay.
Kind of ugly lines, but...
No, that's fine. I think this example right now, it showcases that, like, these are attempts, this is success,
mm-hmm.
right? So in this, you're exploring by trying out different attempts.
Mm-hmm.
Same energy that you're building in that circled momentum,
mm-hmm.
except now it's in different areas of knowledge.
I see.
Okay. So one thing to person, like, let's say that because I've given you this rule to try and connect the A and B,
mm-hmm.
This is what you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we delve into the unknown.
Mm.
All right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to connect A and B?
Yeah, somewhat.
So this is how I would connect it. All your pent-up energy,
mm-hmm.
A, B, because they're linked together,
mm-hmm.
B.
Mm.
So the idea of this like example right now is with action, sometimes we shouldn't we can't be stopped because of the norm. Like this right here is for
like,
the entrepreneurs, the people that are willing to think creatively. They're willing to make a spot where there is no spot.
I see.
So I think
create example, a way through.
Yeah. A very current event type of example is that now you see classes like Steezy, right?
Yeah.
Where they've been around, they've been showing, oh, here's a problem to solve all your stay-at-home needs. No one, or I don't want to say no one, but not as many people took advantage of it.
Yeah.
Right? But
take class.
Right. Just because it's oh, that's weird. We normally go out to take class.
That's true.
We normally hang out. But what they did is they created a bridge. They were like, you know what? The norm can exist. It could be there. Yeah. But we're going to come up with our own way. And later on, what did that do for them? That created a space for them to get everybody that wanted to dance, had the space available already, and every single dancer literally took class
uses it now. Yeah, pretty much.
Exactly. And that in itself is understanding the reality of what others have set up, the rules that people have built, which is tied together with tradition. Yeah. Tradition, you don't want to break tradition.
Yeah, it's true. It's the social norm.
Right, yeah.
Of even taking class.
And all of a sudden, because you decided to look into another outlet, it gave you the upper hand against all the people that still want to take class in person.
I see.
Right? I think a last.
Is there one more way to take action?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just because I find it very there's a lot of people when they ask these type of things, what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah. I don't know what I can do right now.
There's so much you can do, and I feel bad when people are stuck. Really,
Yeah.
you know. I think the ultimate thing is that, just to better understand it, is that if these are the attempts and this is the success, and we're still blockaded by B, right? I mean, we're still blockaded to be able to attain B. So the thing is, the last alternative is finding opportunity. I would put C. So somewhere in this plane, C exists, right?
Yeah.
And if it looks like because of this blockade, I can connect to C easier,
Yeah.
right? Now, by going for something entirely different than what you intended isn't bad.
Yeah.
Because it still falls in the success region, right? And there. So it may not be the initial thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah, it could be like a stepping stone or like just something.
Right. What used to be even like seen as like, oh, like, I don't know, I don't want to, like, let's say somebody that works in like the grocery markets.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I'll just work part-time here in the grocery while I go to school. They suddenly get a management position. Like, this is not exactly what I wanted to do, but like, I'll do it. This pandemic happens. What you attained, the not sought for, is suddenly the highest like, requested like
That's
job
true.
in the market, because we need those type of people. Cool. But I think those are just examples of how to
take action.
Yeah.
So just real quick, can you summarize like the ways that people can take action right now once they are able to have a clear mind and be objective in their like mindset?
Yeah. To be objective,
or
like the mindset wise or the action wise?
The action wise.
So action would be taking a little bit of time to get to your obstacle, which is the first example, showing it by going around, right? I feel like that is the least sought out, because a lot of people want to get their things done in a specific amount of time. The next one is building enough energy to break through the obstacle. Another example would be finding finding the point in the obstacle, another point in the obstacle for you to take advantage of. Instead of seeing it all as a negative, find that one point where it is a positive.
And get through.
And then lastly, going for something entirely different. So C, that still falls within the success region. And just going for that, because as of right now, B looks like it's never going to be
you can't reach it.
You know,
figuring out like other opportunities to get there. And I think like that one for some reason just like vibes with me, because like it kind of goes back to accepting what you can control and like surrendering the outcome, because it's like you might end up in a place that you didn't want before, but it's still pushing you forward in like towards your goal. Like I guess an example would be like, let's just say that you like designing clothes or something, and you like for all your life you want to design for Louis Vuitton, and like you're not going to take anything less, but on your way to trying to become like that designer, you find a position to work for a different company that like is a smaller brand, like a mom and pop clothing store. But that opportunity with them finally gives you the opportunity to work for like Louis Vuitton.
Right.
And so I feel like being able to like think in that way and just understand that, think one, things take time, and then two, that there are other opportunities that could push you like towards your goal. Just remembering that, keeping an eye out for these like opportunities, because if you don't and you get so focused on that like one way, then you're gonna end up in that position where like you're just like running your head into the wall and not being able to get around it, because you can't find that like point C to reach there.
Yeah.
So with that, earlier you were talking about like level 3 of the just like being able to take it, or sorry, level 3 of first being able to control your mindset and just perception, and then 2 being action and like what you can do. And so what was level 3 for?
Yeah, so for stoicism, level 3 is will. And will, I think the best way to distinguish from the other two, because will and perception may seem alike,
Like similar,
right?
yeah.
Perception, I think of it as the mind. Action, I think of it as the body.
I see.
And then will is the soul.
Okay.
So the thing is, like, the reason why it's a level 3 like antic when it comes to getting past these things is because you can have the idea of shit.
Sorry about that.
Should I talk?
No, I'll just wait for it to be done.
Okay. You can have the mindset, you can have the action, but that isn't going to be brought out unless you have the will to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because then, like I said, if it may take you a year to get around the obstacle,
yeah,
like,
get that place.
Are you willing to do that?
And like may or may not be.
And then there's people that don't have their wills, like they're just broken in shambles, and that's the last possible thing you can build on.
Okay.
Starting with a will, I guess I already forgot which one that we wanted to.
Oh, they're here.
Oh. Managing expectations. Managing expectations, I feel like is one kind of a Herculean task. Okay, because when I think of managing my expectations, the thing is, with expecting something, you're already going to have the assumption that it will happen, right?
Yeah. In a certain time, or just that it's going to happen in general.
Yeah, it's expected. And what happens when everything that you've tried for, you ended up not getting it?
Yeah.
All that hard work, all for nothing. So a good way of, and this is kind of ties like into the perception aspect with emotion, is that expectations are there as are predicting. So like when you have your future, you want to predict, and that's probably the expectation.
Yeah, I see.
Okay. Now, if it doesn't happen, then you want to pretty much analyze, okay, well, it didn't happen. What can I do from here? And like the sucky part about expectations, and this is why I identify it as such a hard thing to overcome, is because in those moments they could really like destroy you. Yeah, like I feel like that in itself, like not getting anything you expect, can destroy you. Yeah. So the only real way to manage it is to understand that from the start, think of it like the scientific process. You hypothesize, you experiment and test, and then you analyze. Okay, so if these expectations were the end goal, you did all this, and why are you
so
hurt?
Attached?
Why are you attached? Why are you hurt? When after testing you analyze, oh, it didn't work. Yeah. In a scientific process, immediately you'd be like, okay, next thing. But because you feel like, oh, you've been working so hard, that's still tying yourself into it. And that's not that.
Yeah, you're just tying. That's like it's kind of like going back to level 1. Like you attached yourself into the equation when you should be kind of separating yourself and like being the mastermind behind everything, behind the experiment, I guess you could say. Right. That makes sense. Let's see. Okay. And then, so another section of this, or this level, we talked about being able to learn to love our results and learn to love like what happens to us. And like, I think that's still something that a lot of us are still trying to do and trying to like understand. So what do you feel about
Like,
or what's important about like learning to love your own fate and your like result?
yes, with loving, with loving what happens to us, is it takes a lot of will to do. I think that if you buy into the idea that fate happens, that predetermination is a thing, it honestly becomes easier for you to understand what's happening. Like, predetermination, fate states that this was supposed to happen. And because this was supposed to happen, now you're on the trail to figuring out what the next thing is.
Okay.
So if you're a buyer into this type of ideal, then I believe that you should learn to love what happens to you, because the moment that you actually love all the bad that comes with
like both
your
sides.
experiences, you kind of have the mentality and the drive to suddenly just be like, okay, I'm glad
like, be
this
okay
happened.
with it.
Yeah. And then obviously that's taking context out of you want to take context out of the emotion out of it. But the thing is, I understand that love in itself is a positive emotion, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that love is a driving force for you to continue doing something else. You know, negative emotions, positive emotions. Having a gun,
Both.
utilizing it to break something correctly.
I see. Like both sides. And not letting it like ruin you, but like push you even more.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the last lesson to it is with love comes with understanding just like, if you understand just how positive it is, what are actions that we can take to fortify that? And I think the one thing that I can't get out of my mind, just because it's so apparent to me, is in do you watch My Hero Academia?
I have not watched it. Get me off. Just kidding.
Well, the main character.
I'm sure someone's watched it.
I better hope that show. It's funny because in that show, the main character, he follows his inspiration, who always smiles in the face of adversity, right?
Okay.
And he's like, this hero is always smiling.
Yeah.
Biggest ass, like, drawn animated smile.
Okay. I see.
The thing is, you see this hero, and has this big ass smile in every like impossible task he does. And
everything.
Then, you see the main character, and he's like struggling, and he's trying to smile and like emulate that same presence, but it just looks awkward
on him,
right? But really, that's because he hasn't fully loved all of the bad that comes in these obstacles.
I see.
Whereas somebody who has a great smile in the midst of adversity,
he like already accepts
what's happening and is willing to smile because he has the love for these obstacles.
Well, it's like bad or good. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's a good practice, really.
Yeah,
because when you can continue, like, sometimes now when I get my, like, I'm doing a test and then I get 48 out of 50.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, all right, like, let's get that 50 then. Like, it gives you that contentness and just be like, okay, wow, there's just not, I don't know enough.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's put me to the test.
I see. Interesting. I feel like that made me think of like an example, I guess, of like of a way to apply that. At least that's happened for me. Is like when I guess it kind of goes into like relationships, and like let's just give an example of like, you know, someone being in a relationship with someone for like 2 years, and then for some reason it ended like badly. Like one way that you can kind of apply that concept to that situation, because in that situation you would think like F them, like I hate them, whatever. But like accepting that, and then like not necessarily like smiling about it, but like accepting that it happened, and accepting to like take the good from that relationship to like push forward in the future. And I think like applying that has like really helped me like be a person, you know, in like in the lives of the people that like I've loved in the past. And still like, even though there are like faults and like there's like some bad things, it's just like being that like a person to accept like everything, I feel like it's lifted like a weight, I guess, because it's like when you let that weight like weigh you down, it's a lot easier to just like accept everything and like accept that it happened, and just like be responsible for like yourself and your emotions. And so yeah, I feel like
That's a good example.
Yeah, learning to love everything that's happened is like a really important ideal to take, especially in this like section. And it's like I feel like it's super hard to completely be there.
Yeah, dude, like that's why it's level 3. Like,
yeah,
this is like, you can have the action, you can like go do something healthy to get over this relationship, right?
Yeah.
But also, if you're not really happy doing it, if you're not loving that you're exercising after a breakup, then your will is not completely
it's not there yet. Yeah.
And once you do buy into it, you're just like, oh hell yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, moving on. So I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but being able to use a larger cause to fuel your will.
Yeah.
Do you think you could talk a little bit about, you know, using something bigger than yourself to fuel your motivation and your will?
Yeah. I think like mentioned, because I was using like the hoarding example, or like grocery getting and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And I think those are examples of finding whether or not you are capable of even doing things for a larger cause, right? So the thing about the larger spectrum of things is that we are all live on this earth together, right? I think that the best way. Hello. I think with larger cause and all of that stuff, if you are the type of person that wants to, like, if you're still in the mindset of like, okay, I'm going to do everything that I can, and I'm going to do it right, and go about this stoic mindset and still not give a care for the world, there are going to be obstacles in the way where you're just like, damn, I'm exhausted, I have nothing else to do, whatever. And in those moments, I feel like it's actually a lot better to stop worrying about yourself and doing stuff for others. Reason that I feel like helping others can teach you is that let's say that you want to eat cereal.
Yeah, I love cereal.
Okay, cool. And let's say you like to eat cereal.
Yeah.
And let's say that I want a car. Right? Two completely different things. Okay. So as a manufacturer of car, or as a manufacturer of cereal bowls, I don't have the capabilities of ever making a car. Yeah. As a manufacturer of cars, you don't have the capabilities of making porcelain bowls. So, we're both facing obstacles, and we can do it. Like, we can learn how to manufacture these things, but also like in this pandemic, there is a scarcity of resources. Yeah. So by helping a larger cause,
Mm.
do you want cereal?
Thank you.
Do I want a car?
Here you go.
So that's a good way of looking at the overall greater cause, because sometimes, like, I get it, there's things that where we want to continue doing and the greater cause isn't necessarily for other people. Sometimes it could be for us, but the point is that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So utilize, help
Like your
people,
resources.
they'll help you. And by, like, who knows, by helping another person, you might, and they can't help you back,
Yeah.
they might have solved something for you. Like, by doing that act, they might have given you another way of looking at how you want to get to your next obstacle.
I see.
Or they network you to somebody else.
To someone that can. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's a matter of, like, we're all in this together. Let's make our time good.
Yeah. I think that's like a really good way of looking at it, because I think I forgot where I heard this, but I know that someone said that, like, the greatest CEOs are the greatest followers, because what they're following is like a cause or something that's like greater than themselves. And like the reason why they make such good leaders is because they're pushing for something that is like bigger than themselves and that they can follow. And so putting like your ego aside and like pushing for that greater goal, whether it's like, maybe it's like something that's almost impossible to solve, like, and like getting rid of world hunger or something like that. Like the person that's like really in charge of pushing for that, they always know what to do next, and they always know what actions to take, because like they're following that greater cause like to the T. Yeah.
No, yeah, completely agree.
Okay. And then I think and then just like lastly, I know you mentioned this like before, but like dealing with, or just remembering that like our lives are going to come to an end eventually, you know? Like I think that idea is like very important. I know you want to talk a little bit about that, so
yeah. No, oh yeah, completely. With mortality itself, I think that it's something that we take for granted. You know, like I could imagine that every 20-year-old, not really every, but like the ones that are considered healthy, have a plan in their life where it involves them being at least 40, at least 50, at least 60 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So with that idea in mind, we choose to take things easy because we're gonna get there. Because we've only lived 20 years.
Yeah.
That's 40 years. That's like double my lifetime.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll get there.
We've lived barely half of that.
Exactly. And I think that we take that so for granted that in the face of this pandemic, even like where death is literally all around us.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Honestly, that like if you buy into the whole like live each day like it's your last, like that teaching is pretty much what
this
initiates
like
the will. And I think, and I hope, and I really hope that we understand that there's going to be a lot of people affected, and I feel like including even me or you, and in that sense, until we're diagnosed, until we like get tested and like we're diagnosed, we are going to be like shit.
Yeah. Like we don't even know.
You know, like at that moment, I feel like we're going to do everything that we can to protect our family. When before that, we weren't even doing anything. Like I was casually like walking around touching everything. You know? Yeah. But it's all of a sudden when death is into perspective, it changes our actions and keeps us more in tune with what's presently happening.
I see.
Like where my hands are going and I'm touching.
That's true.
I wash my
like
hands.
With everything, yeah.
And I feel like if you understand that much, if you can apply that to everyday living, even after this pandemic, I think you'll honestly be in a really good place.
I see. Kind of like, I guess, some like lasting thoughts that you'd want to leave someone is that, like, just because this pandemic is going on doesn't mean that once it's done, you can like forget that like we're mortal and that like things can come to an end, because, and that's like not even with like just death, but with like with just like with your relationships with people and the connections that you have, because like there's gonna be a day where like you might not be able to see like some of your close friends like every day or like every week or something, like with living with, at least with like living life to the fullest, and like just remembering to be grateful for like everything that you have. It's important to always like keep that in mind, because I think it's really often now that we take a lot of things for granted, whether that's like maybe for someone it's like their parents or like their friends or just like the situation that they're in. I think always going back to like appreciation and gratefulness, like you will be able to find more energy to like have action and also just like have that perception. And I think it's always going to be something that like we're pursuing, because I don't think we'd be able to reach that like stage of enlightenment. It's like something that you're always just like pursuing to like push for.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the examples and like how you said it is pretty much like encapsulating the whole entire lesson, I would say. I think the last thing that I would add to that statement is like, if you were to go about it, mindfulness every single minute. Like if
all the time.
That's it, like that in itself, like you're all of a sudden going to find all the answers that you need, take the right action, not necessarily the right action, but take action, and all keeping that perception and will built up behind you.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. So I really hope that helped someone today. Let's see. Before we like wrap everything up, I did want to just like kind of go through a little bit of a summary of everything that we talked to today, just so that people have a way to kind of easily think about what it is that they can do. So do you think you can just go over everything a little bit? Touch on everything a little bit.
Very brief. So stoicism in itself encapsulates perception, action, and then will. Okay. In your perception, there are different ways that you can fortify your mindset. But I guess the easiest statement to think of is learning to take you out of the equation, solely focused on what's there, and ignoring all of the external, and just being able to take information as it is, be able to prioritize what information matters, and then from there it requires action, right? And using this whole pandemic as an example, we understand this pandemic is happening. Am I affected in this community? I don't know. What I do know is that I haven't left this house. No one else has left this house.
True.
So all I know is that it should not be residing in this environment. Now that I know that, what actions can I take? For the actions, we did our example with A to B. You can either, in this room, you can just keep studying, and if your end goal is like finding a job, then you let's say that's on hold, because all of
the whole thing
is happening. What are you doing to be a better candidate? That even if they aren't necessarily looking for people, they've tightened their qualifications. What have you learned since then to be able to qualify above the others that decided to get into the job market at the level that they were at, right?
Before,
right. That so the different action is saving your energy, breaking through the obstacle. You can find another way to get to that point. Like let's say you wanted to get the job of engineering, then what ways can you do it? Is there like some learning course online or whatever to be able to make you a better candidate? Maybe you decide to not work for them entirely and find out there's another business that works. I don't know, you know?
You never know.
Or even just completely finding a new, like, job, like, create a different goal for yourself where it still falls within the success region, has a little bit of what you want to do, but at the end of the day, after 2020, that job ends up paying way more than the job that you initially wanted. And because you sought that right away, that it was harder for everyone else to transition into the market because it's getting more saturated. Right? And then I think that was the last hack. Other than that, just like wait it out and find a different way.
Find a different way. Find those opportunities. Push for whatever your goal is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess the last one after you decided the course of action you want to take is making sure that your will is within you the whole entire time. Because without purpose, then you are not going to be able to continuously work at it day by day. And I think the biggest like lesson from Will is just keeping yourself in check, learning how to manage your expectations, understanding that this was an action that I took, this was the result I got, instead of succumbing to like the failure of it. Like, okay, now you've got to the wall, like identify the next course of action.
That's time to iterate. Run them iterations.
Other than that, I feel like lastly for the will is just loving what happens, because loving and understanding that life is fleeting, right? Because if you love everything that you do and you understand that life is fleeting, I picture this when I die, that everything that I've done in my life is going to flash before my eyes.
It's like whoosh.
Like that's what they say, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
And that's the only information that we have. So I'm going to believe in it. And in that moment that I'm about to die, I would very much love to see a life that was fulfilled, that a life was continuously moving, that adapting to the change, seeing the bad, seeing how I overcame them, being my own main character that I want to see on a TV show, and making the best damn movie that I could possibly watch for the very last time.
Knowing that you did your best in that situation.
And I think ultimately that is the most satisfying thing to be able to have at the end of your life. Because after that, nothing comes after death. I mean, under the assumption that everything that you've experienced will not come after death, right?
Wherever you go, wherever you believe in.
Whatever you do, whatever you believe.
Okay.
But
yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to talk about today. But again, the goal of the podcast is to make sure that we, help explain what it means to prioritize your mindset, prioritize personal development, and just prioritizing like content creation and everything like that, and also talking about what it means to be fearless. And I think we talked a lot about that today, just like with all the ideals within this book and stuff. And also just for anyone that's coming in a little bit late, a lot of the topics that we talked about today does come from a book that Justin read called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. So if you want to dive in more into those ideals, and just like, and maybe that's like the best way that you learn in like written form, then I do suggest like you go read that book. I personally haven't read that book yet, but it's definitely gonna be on my reading list. And so if there is more that you want to know, then I would suggest finding the book. At least for me, reading, I feel like, helps me dive deep into a certain subject rather than just like seeing like the tip of the iceberg. So
yeah, honestly, I feel like really everything that I talked about you'll be able to find in that book. And therefore, if you have any questions, there you are. Get that book.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you guys for spending your time with me here on Fearless with Sharpe. I know you could be anywhere else right now listening to whatever. You might be driving, you might be in the shower, you might be working out, but I'm glad that you're here with us today. And so I really hope that we brought some value to you in your life and shed some light on what it takes to get the most out of quarantine, because I know it's affecting like pretty much everyone in this world. So thank you for showing up and putting yourself first. And so with that, the podcast is going to be available on all main podcasting platforms. Will be available on Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and Spotify. So if you also want to watch the video in long form, I will be uploading the edited video of this podcast onto YouTube. And also I'll be posting mini videos of this podcast on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. So thank you guys for joining us today. We're going to be wrapping it up